If you've been into sim racing for, let's say, the last 6 years, at least, and you've looked to YouTube for reviews, tech tips, that kind of stuff, then you've probably heard of Boosted Media. Well, today, I have the privilege and honor of getting to interview Will Ford of Boosted Media here on Inside Sim Racing. Welcome to Inside Sim Racing. I'm Darren Ganji, and like I mentioned at the top of the show, I've got Will Ford. And Will, thank you so much for joining me this evening for me, morning for you. It's been a while. Again, thank you for coming on the show.
Not a problem at all. It's a pleasure. I don't have much time to do this kind of thing these days, but I always enjoy it. So yeah, thank you very much for the invite, and yeah, hopefully we can have a interesting and beneficial chat for the viewers that might be wondering what things are like behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And again, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know how busy it is for you. And actually, let me apologize publicly here. This is the third time we've scheduled this, and because of me, we had to cancel 2 times. So thank you for being so patient and not basically saying, forget this guy, I'm not going to come on the show because he keeps blowing me off. But anyway, thank you, Will, for being patient.
In fairness, it was Mother's Day, and you did make the right choice.
Yes, I did.
Family always comes first, and like I said to you at the time, I was happy to see somebody that actually put the right boundaries in place, because it's rare. So yeah, all good.
You know, actually, that was going to be a topic for later in the show, but since you brought it up, let's talk about work-life balance, because
what's that?
I mean, yeah, I know. So how do you do it? How do you balance Boosted Media and everything you're doing with that, and raising a family, and time for your wife?
All right, so yeah, look, we're really jumping straight into it, aren't we?
Yeah, might as well. Hey, we're on the subject, so I figured we'd just start there, and then we'll go to where I wanted to start. But let's just go there.
All good. All right. So yeah, look, I mean, there isn't a right answer to this question. It's a moving goalpost all the time. I was very lucky early on that I had a decently paying job, not crazy well paid or anything like that, but I had I was earning enough money to sort of keep food on the table and support the family, with 2 young kids. And the boss that I had at the time was actually a good friend of mine, and I was helping him with the online side of his business. And I could pretty much, I wouldn't say I could do the job with my eyes closed, but I could cover off what needed to be done in a couple of hours a day. And I was very forthcoming with him and basically said, what do we want to do here? Because, I've got all this extra time and blah, blah, blah. And he said, look, as long as we're hitting the goals that as long as I'm making money from you, basically, I don't care what you do. And so that gave me the freedom on company time, really, to sort of start doing the Boosted Media stuff and really sort of taking it seriously. So that was an amazing opportunity, which I think, really was what made the whole thing possible from the start, was the fact that, I could do my job in a couple of hours a day, still earn enough money to keep food on the table during that period where, YouTube wasn't earning enough money to even break even on the stuff that I was buying and, fiddling around with on videos. So it wasn't like I was having to do everything in the evening and sacrifice time with the kids early on like that, which would be the case for a lot of people starting out. So that was very lucky. But yeah, then later on in the picture, it was very much a case of just trying to balance everything as best as I possibly could. I mean, I look back to when I first went full time, which was 2019, and it was a very scary time because, obviously with the responsibility of, a wife and 2 young kids, you got to take that seriously. And we'll probably get into some more detail on, what sort of, got me into doing it full time in the first place and what sort of made me realize that it was a thing. But yeah, it was really, really difficult to sort of, try and manage family time, kid time and everything. And look, regret is a very, very strong word. I wouldn't say that I regret any of the choices that I made because it was necessary, and, we wouldn't be where we are now if it wasn't for the choices that I made. But at the same time, my kids were well, Benny was only just born. He was, yeah, very young. Lizzie was 3 or 4 at the time. And I did miss out on a lot of time with them, which, you know, I can't get back now. So that is difficult. Yeah, you watch them grow up, and, you know, I do feel like I'm a bit of a fly on the wall sometimes in their lives rather than too involved. It's something that I'm spending a lot of time trying to fix now. But at the same time, I did have the freedom of working from home and everything as well. So, you know, if the family needed me for something, I could be available. I could shuffle things around, which, you know, for a lot of guys and girls, you know, working full time out of the office, you know, they leave at, I mean, it was the same with my dad when I was a kid. You know, he'd leave at 6 o'clock in the morning before I woke up, and he wouldn't get home until 10:30, 11 at night. So when you frame it like that, I was actually more present than a lot of guys are able to be for their kids. So, but yeah, the most difficult thing, I think, is just having clear boundaries and separation between work and home. And that's particularly difficult when you're working from home, as I'm sure you would know. Yeah, just going from work mode to dad mode in the early days, and then going from, you know, business owner mode to dad mode is even more difficult because things don't stop. They just, you know, keep going.
Right.
And particularly for me being in Australia, my 6 p.m., which is, you know, dinner time and kid time, is your 9 a.m. So all the emails and all the messages and everything are just getting started. Like, my admin day starts at 6 p.m. So and runs until about 2 or 3 in the morning. So right when everybody's wanting my attention is when my family wants the attention as well. So that's where I have to, you know, be much better at drawing lines and boundaries and things. But yeah, look, I mean, it's not something that I would say that I'm particularly good at. And but yeah, you just sort of sink or swim, I guess.
Yep, and just do the best you can.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what did you do before? What was the job that you had before Boosted?
So I've done a lot of different things, actually, and I think this is where I've been really lucky, that I've always sort of felt like everything I've done has had a pretty clear path. So I actually started out when I finished school, I went straight into an engineering type job. So I was actually designing and building military equipment for a company in Australia that subcontracted out to the Navy here. So basically, look, I just applied for a job straight out of school on an assembly line, effectively just, you know, putting together electronics. And they saw pretty quickly what I was capable of, and I sort of just moved up the ranks there. So I didn't have any, you know, formal qualifications or anything, but I was in an environment where I was working on, you know, secret equipment and stuff, which was pretty cool as an 18-year-old. And I was working with, you know, engineers at the top of the field. So I was basically like a sponge in that environment. I was just trying to learn as much as I possibly could. So I did that for a couple of years. Unfortunately, as a young guy in that kind of environment, I thought I was super smart and everything. And I got, no, I wouldn't say arrogant, but, you know, I didn't take all the opportunities that I probably could have in that. And I started to sort of develop some self-esteem issues, just, you know, feeling like I wasn't good enough and everything. And so then I took a job from there actually working in a girls' school. So I was one of the IT guys in a girls' school at the age of 20, which was interesting. So I did that for a couple of years, and that was really good because it was a really friendly, happy environment to be in. Everybody was super appreciative of what I was doing all the time. So that sort of did a lot for my self-esteem and made me feel like I was valuable. And then from there, I worked at Sony, so the head office in Australia, and there I was responsible for building all of the training materials. So, you know, you're effectively like what you'd have as Best Buy over there, or, you know, shops like that. We have JB Hi-Fi here in Australia, which is the main one. So my job was basically to put together training courses for the floor staff so that they could effectively communicate the products. So it was kind of a culmination of my in engineering background and understanding of how those things work, plus what I'd learned in the school environment through trying to communicate things with kids and, you know, trying to help them understand problems and so forth. So I'd sort of developed the problem solving skills, the engineering and electronics skills, and then the adult education skills on top of that as well. through Sony. So I kind of had all the necessary ingredients to start sort of reviewing products. So yeah, but the job that I had directly before, the one I was just talking about before, was just an online sales manager basically for a car performance workshop.
Oh, okay.
So
speaking of that, so car performance workshop. So
Yeah.
March 6th, 2014. Does that date ring a bell?
March 6, 2014. No.
That's the day you posted your very first video.
Hi everyone, my name's Will and you're watching Project BRZ. Now as this is a brand new channel, I thought I'd take a moment to introduce it and tell you a little bit about what I'm going to be doing. Now in a couple of days time I'm going to be picking up my brand new Subaru BRZ. I'm super... Nice!
Oh, of course. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
I was thinking, March 2014 sounds familiar, but yeah, the actual day yeah.
See, I did a little research.
Oh, there you go.
So you talked about performance. So
Yep.
you started the channel as Boosted Autos, and
Yeah.
you were working on a BRZ. That you got. So
Yep.
so then 4 years after you started, March
Yep.
20th, 2018, you did a video on a monster PC build. So it sounds like, now that you told me your past at Sony and stuff, that's all really starting to make sense for me. So
Yep.
so why the transition from the auto stuff? Well, actually, let's start there. So
Yep.
what was your thoughts on, I mean, anybody can start a YouTube channel nowadays about
Yep.
it, back those days about anything. So what was your goal or plan? Was it just to kind of chronicle that build, or did you have any vision, as far as where you wanted to go with it? Like, how did that all start?
So that's a really good question. I actually really like talking about this because it's it's quite interesting for me to sort of reminisce and go back on it as well. But so at the time, I was about 2 years into Sony, and it was right at the time where Web 2.0 was kind of taking off. And we were transitioning with the courses that I was building into doing video stuff. So I didn't have any on-camera skills at all. It was obvious that video was the direction that training was going to be going. And so part of me was thinking, okay, well, I want to build this car, and this is a good opportunity to develop my personal and professional skills. I think I've talked to you before, and I know I've shared on my channel before that I do have an anxiety condition as well. So being on camera was a big trigger for me, but also working on cars has always been something that I've been very passionate about. But I've always doubted myself. So I'd get up in my head and I'd be, thinking, oh, I'm going to break something, and it'd get so bad that I just wouldn't even try stuff. And I knew that I had the skills, and the ability to learn, but it was always that barrier there. So I decided to start the channel simply because I wanted to, it wasn't so much about documenting the build, it was more challenging myself. So I wanted to build those professional and personal skills, but really sort of, I guess the main goal there was to sort of try and break myself out of that shell and break that anxiety cycle, and prove to myself what I was capable of, really. So that was, I guess, the underpinning motivation behind it initially. So it had nothing to do with trying to build an audience or anything like that. I didn't care if anybody watched the videos. It was more just, to develop my own skills, and
Well, props to you, man, because first of all, I meant to say this at the beginning of the show, but congratulations on all your success, man. You've just killed it. You've done such a great job of building Boosted Media to what it is. You're one of the top. I would say, actually, for what you do, you are at the top.
Well, thank you.
And, man, my pleasure. And like I said, congratulations. And because I know how tough it is to...
Yeah.
I may not have struggled with it like you do, but I definitely have anxiety. And for me, I never wanted to be on camera. early on.
Yeah.
Like when I was doing it with Sean, and if you go watch a lot of our early shows, mostly it was Sean on camera or Jessica, and I was just behind the scenes. And then it just over time I just got comfortable doing it, and I think I just put all of that anxiousness out of my head. Anyway, but enough about me. But anyway, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It's interesting to hear how you started it and why. Like for us, it was more about just creating awareness for sim racing because 2007, nobody really knew what sim racing was.
No.
So then you transitioned from the auto stuff to and you started to get a little bit of a following, it seemed. And then you transitioned to the Monster PC build, it seemed, was your first tech. So why the transition from the auto to the tech side?
So, I was in a bit of a pickle, really, because okay, this is gonna get deep. So, when I first started the channel, it was actually called Project BRZ, and it was very specific just to that car. And at the time, the car had only just come out, so I was one of the first people in the world to really go crazy with one and boost it and do all that kind of stuff. So it developed a very niche following. So it was really only people that were interested in that specific car. And this is back when automotive YouTube, I mean, these days you've got channels like Matt Armstrong, which are, doing a different car every single week. And, they've got this massive audience. But back then, automotive YouTube was much more focused on, I guess, just in time kind of educational content. So, somebody'd go on Google to search for a solution to a specific problem and they'd find your video, but they would never watch anything else from you again. So I had probably, I think, 6,000 or 7,000 subscribers that were really just within that community. But yeah, the reason I actually bought that car specifically was my wife and I were trying to have kids, and we were basically told that wasn't going to happen for us. So I thought, well, screw it, I'll buy a sports car. So I had a WRX that I'd done quite a bit of work to, but I thought, nah, I'm going to go and buy effectively a 2-seater. It has got 4 seats, but the back seats were useless. I'm going to go buy a rear-wheel drive, sports car and just go crazy with it. So I'd ordered the car. I had literally a garage full of parts already. I, spent all of my savings on this thing. And then my wife miraculously got pregnant. And I thought, oh crap, what am I going to do? So
now I got this 2-seater sports car.
Exactly, yeah. So look, it was really exciting and, obviously absolutely thrilled about it. But at the same time, I knew that the car wasn't going to be able to stay for very long. So I smashed through as much as I possibly could. And then I thought, well, nobody's going to care about this channel beyond that car. And I ended up selling the car in, I think it was like November 2016. So there was a couple of years worth of content there. I managed to hold on to it for a while. But yeah, look, when I sold the car, I actually said to the guy that bought it, do you want the channel? Because I just figured that nobody
would.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to try and charge him for it or anything. It was just like, oh, if you want the channel, you can have it. Because I really didn't think that there would be any interest beyond that car. But yeah, he said, look, I'm not really interested in it. And then I thought, well, why don't I just make the channel about just interesting stuff that I do in day-to-day life and just see what happens. I figure, I've got nothing to lose. Either people watch it or they don't. So, and I'd always been passionate about, PCs and building crazy stuff and overclocking and all that stuff. So I thought, well, let's just give it a shot. So that's how that happened. And yeah, surprisingly, there was more of an audience crossover than I thought. So I did a couple of videos on PC building, and then when I bought another car, I started making some videos about that. So really, it just kind of became a channel about, Will and the interesting stuff that he's doing. And yeah, again, it was just a passion project. It really wasn't ever intended to be anything beyond that.
Yeah, and about that time, it seems like you changed the name to Boosted Media, and then your tag was Boosted Autos, Boosted Tech, Boosted Life.
Yeah, so yeah, it went from Project BRZ to Boosted Autos, which was when I did a couple of videos about the BMW M235i that I had, And then it went to, when I started doing some tech stuff, I'm like, all right, well, boosted autos doesn't really work anymore, so boosted media. So, yeah, and the whole boosted thing was always sort of a tag around, making things do things that they weren't originally designed to do. So whether it be cars or computers or whatever, it was like boosting them. So that was where that whole idea came
makes
from.
Sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assumed. Oh, dropped an earbud. I assumed that it was originally because of the car. But now it totally makes sense. Boosted PC.
Yeah, exactly.
So your first gaming hardware review, do you remember what it was?
I think it was like a gaming mouse or something.
Yep, a Logitech G903 mouse and PowerPlay mouse pad.
Yep, that's right.
Going down memory lane for you, huh?
Oh, mate, yeah. There was back then, again, it was just whatever I had. Like, this was all stuff that I was buying. Like, I wasn't being sent anything.
Right.
Yeah, I just enjoyed making videos, and I still felt like it was helping me professionally and personally, so I just kept going.
Nice. And then on October 14th, 2018.
I remember that one.
Okay, your first sim racing sim racing, building a racing sim, Fanatic Club Sport wheelbase, V2.5 unboxing. So now, I'm assuming you purchased that too, or did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I bought that. So look, this was again sort of a family-driven thing. So by this time, it had been 4 years since I'd really been involved in the automotive scene very heavily, since my daughter had been born. And I was really starting to miss, taking the car to the track and going out for drives on a Sunday with my mates and stuff. And that was at that early childhood kind of phase with the kids where both kids were asleep by 6 p.m. My wife was usually absolutely exhausted, so she would go to bed as well. So I found myself with, 3 or 4 hours of an evening after work where I could pretty much do whatever. And so I thought, well, maybe this sim racing thing is worth a try. And I remember very specifically, Tom, my brother, who now works with me. I was going to say works for me, but he's more of a business partner these days than an employee. I remember sending him a text message and saying, I think I had $2,000 in my savings account, which was just like my unaccountable me money. And it was, I was tossing up whether I should buy a mountain bike or buy a sim racing rig. And he told me, no, you should definitely buy the mountain bike. And I ended up buying both. So I bought the bike and got out on that a little bit. But yeah, I just decided, I had an old Logitech G27 that was kicking around, and I was playing a little bit of F1 2017 in the evenings and really enjoying it. And I didn't really do any big research or anything. I kind of just jumped online, typed in sim racing hardware, and the Fanatec stuff showed up, and I thought, whoa, that stuff looks awesome. And, like a lot of people, didn't really think too much more about it, just sort of bought the first thing that looked good. And yeah, again, at that point, I wasn't even thinking about really reviewing stuff or anything like that. It was just, this is something that I've bought. Let's check it out.
That's really cool, man. It's so cool to hear how you transitioned into that. And again, you never really planned to have success in this. It was to try to get over your anxiety and feel comfortable doing what you do now so well. But man, what a cool story. That is very cool to hear. So I'm assuming you're an F1 fan because you were playing F1 2017.
Yeah, it's becoming harder and harder to be an F1 fan. but Formula One's. I've only ever really had the time to follow one motorsport. Formula One's always kind of been it. I used to follow MotoGP as well when I was younger. But yeah, I've always been. This is going to be controversial, but I've always been a bit of a Lewis Hamilton fan because he's the same age as me, and I've sort of followed his career and lived vicariously through him throughout his career.
There's nothing wrong with being a Lewis Hamilton fan. I mean, he's one of the. I mean, some people, you probably call him the GOAT. He's definitely one of the greatest. He's doing pretty good with Ferrari, but man, he had an incredible run with Mercedes.
Oh yeah, he definitely found himself in the right place at the right time more than once.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I think when he went to Mercedes, I was like, man, what is?
Yeah.
If I recall, Mercedes wasn't all that great. I mean, I think that was on the first Red Bull run.
Yeah.
Vettel, wasn't it? At the tail end of Vettel, yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought when he went to Mercedes, I'm like, man, what? Because he was with McLaren, I think, before that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's had a hell of a career. And
yeah, I mean, like but I don't think anybody thought that was a smart move at the time. But yeah, it just worked out perfectly for him.
Yeah, and I've never really followed F1. I mean, a little bit like you. I only had time to follow one thing. I followed NASCAR pretty heavily, like right out of high school. I was always into sports cars and stuff, but I followed them a little bit. But then after having kids, like your life just totally changes, and it was following soccer games and softball and just trying to be the best dad that I could.
Yeah.
So I know you did, and I don't know if you still do, but I would imagine you dabble a little bit. I know you drive a lot because you review all this product, but do you race much anymore for fun? I know you were on iRacing and you chronicled some of your racing there, but how much do you get to do anymore?
Look, I mean, in terms of just purely turning on the sim without thinking about content at all, it is pretty rare these days. Actually, it's funny. Forza Horizon 6 has been a bit of a fun little pastime for me recently. I've been jumping on that and just having a ton of fun, which I know a lot of sim racers would frown at, but it's an arcade game, but it's a lot of fun.
Not me.
But look,
I love those titles. I've always had fun with them.
But look, I mean, I try to get on as often as I possibly can, but I mean, at some point, which I'm sure we'll talk about, it transitioned from being just a hobby to a job. And look, the honest truth is these days, after a day of testing hardware and, plugging things in, plugging things out, testing this, testing that, the last thing I feel like doing of an evening is jumping on the sim rig and driving. So, I'm very much a believer that when something stops being fun, you need to take a break. You shouldn't try and force it. And recently I've been in a bit of one of those periods where, we're working on a couple of other exciting projects at the moment too, and that's been taking up a bit of my time, which has sort of been the escape that I needed from sim racing to sort of refocus and start enjoying it again. So like I've always been super passionate about the hardware side of things and everything, but I'm more a hardware guy than a sim racer, I would say. I'm more passionate. I enjoy testing the hardware and exploring its limits and everything more than I actually enjoy jumping in an open lobby and racing most of the time.
I can relate to that. I can relate to a lot of what you just said. It's funny when you tell people about what you do, and they, a lot of times they say, "Oh, how cool! You turned a hobby into a career."
Yeah.
And then it makes you really think about the fact that, like you said, you get to a point where you're on the rig all day, you're testing all this stuff, and then the last thing you want to do at night is to jump into a race because you've basically been sim racing or driving or testing stuff all day long. So I can totally relate to where you're coming from with that. Yeah. And I agree. It does, for me, it would almost be seasonal a little bit for me, where I would take a break and then I'd get back into it. And then I didn't have this for the first time in almost 20 years. I didn't have a rig at my house. And then some of the guys at Sim Motion here, 3 of the other guys were all sim racing and doing all this stuff. I'm like, man, I really miss it. And I just built a rig again recently, and now I'm able to do it more for fun.
On your terms.
And yes, exactly. That's a good way to put it, on my terms. So what I wanted to ask you was, have you ever done an endurance race?
I've done 1 or 2. We did the last one I did was around this time last year. We did the Make-A-Wish Foundation race around. It was Road Atlanta. But yeah, look, again with young kids, it's difficult. Like look, my wife is super supportive of what I'm doing. Don't Don't get me wrong, but I personally find it very difficult to say, hey, sweetie, you got to have to look after the kids this weekend because I'm going to play video games for 24 hours. Like,
Right.
it doesn't sit right with me. So,
I don't blame you.
Yeah, look, it is. When I do it, I enjoy it, but it's not something that I can sacrifice the time with family for often. I'm very much, and I think this sort of ties in with the anxiety, and also I'm on the autism spectrum as well. So I think it's kind of that hyper focus that I get, where if I'm going to do something, I'm 110% into it, which I think it's a very good thing because it makes me good at my job. It gives me that attention to detail that you need to do what I do. But on the flip side, the difficulty is I really do struggle with, like, if I'm going to do an endurance race or any sort of, competition style thing, I'll be training every night. I'll be doing 2 hours here, 2 hours there. So then when it comes down to the moment and you get wiped out in turn one, I get really angry and frustrated. And, again, it crosses that line between, having fun and not having fun. And when you've had that happen a couple of times, it becomes very difficult to, justify spending the time. Because it is a sacrifice of time with family. Like, if I'm going to go and train for 2 hours, that's 2 hours that I'm not spending with my kids. So, and I think as well, another part of it for me, and I don't know whether this is something that you've struggled with, but whenever I'm racing online, people do recognize me in lobbies and stuff, so they do drive differently around me. Like, they'll either drive super aggressively because they might get on a boosted media video, or they might, just let me through because they don't want to be the guy that took out the YouTube guy. So I don't always get the natural sort of organic experience when I am racing in lobbies. But also, it's always in the back of my mind that, if I crash into somebody and wipe them out or do something, by accident that's really stupid, I know that there's going to be a video on YouTube the next day about Will Ford, the idiot driver that took me out, So that's kind of, I know that I'm overthinking it, but that's just my personality. That's who I am. So it does make
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it just does make it more of a challenge than it probably should be for me.
Yeah, and you are overthinking it a little bit, and I'm always saying that because I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I could totally relate to that. Where, like, iRacing in particular, like, I get so protective of my I rating, which isn't all that great. I mean, it's decent. It's in the 2000s.
Yeah.
But part of me is like, I'm so protective of that, and then I also get in my head that, what are people gonna think about me if my I rating drops too much, or like what you said, or Darren Ganji took somebody out, and I think the other part of it too is, I definitely brewed some controversy back in the day and developed a bit of a reputation that I'm not proud of, and I know that there was times like I would get purposely taken out by somebody because of that. And so I think for a while I just kind of avoided it.
Yeah.
But recently when I've been racing again, here's the thing for me too. I do not have voice chat on.
Yep. I've always had that off. Yep.
I can't hear what people are saying. And then I'll be, there's been a few times recently where I've been taken out and I'm like, man, I want to say something.
Yep.
And I start typing and I'm thinking, they're probably not going to read it. But so I can
I've learned to always watch the replay before you get on chat.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I actually filed a protest recently because of some guy just doing some dumb stuff. But so back to endurance racing. When you get to a point in your life when the kids are grown and you got some time, I would love to team up with you sometime.
Yeah, man.
That's
absolutely.
That's, in my opinion, I think it's the best form of sim racing there is, because you have to really, you're out by yourself, you wreck, you're done. You hit escape, you're done. If you wreck as part of an endurance team, and you're the one that caused it, man, that is a horrible feeling. So for me, it changes. It definitely changes. Like, I definitely don't drive aggressively. So I would love to team up with you someday if when you have time.
For sure.
And you could devote to it, because that's one of the reasons I got back into sim racing. Not that I've ever was out of it, because I have this business and all this, I would drive here at the shop. My mentality was, I could just come drive any
Yeah.
one of the rigs I have here at the shop, and I just wouldn't. I'd go home
Yeah.
for the night, and I'm like, I'm not going back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
No,
would love
think
to.
I agree with you on that. That's I think one of the and I've made a video about this probably 3 or 4 years ago now. I think one of the biggest challenges in sim racing is the fact that, you know, in real life racing, the stakes are high by default because of the danger factor, right? And the money involved, and, you know, if you crash, you got to pay for it. In sim racing, you know, you've got guys like me that are trying to make content, and, you know, like we were just discussing, maybe I've just, you know, spent an hour setting up, ready to shoot a video. I've got my racing suit on and everything to do the point of view shots, and, you know, it's a lot of investment in time to get that set up. And then I'm jumping in a lobby and I'm with some guy that's, you know, on the cans after work and doesn't care. And, you know, so the stakes are much higher for me than they are for him. And so, like, he takes me out in turn one, I get all angry and upset, and I'm ready to jump on the keyboard and start the abuse. And then I got to stop and think, well, hang on. It's not his fault that I've put myself in a situation where the stakes are so high for me. Right. What right do I have to be angry with him for having a bit of fun after work? You know, that's perfectly valid as well.
Good point.
The point I'm making is that, you know, you're always going to have that inherent mix of different motivations in sim racing compared to real life. But in endurance racing or league racing, it kind of erases that a little bit because everybody's invested, everybody's, you know, wanting to do well, everybody's there for the same purpose. So I think
a lot more accountability.
Right. Exactly, yeah. So you definitely that's where the best quality racing is always going to be if that's what you're looking for.
Yep, I agree. So let's talk hardware.
Yep.
So what do you think is the biggest difference maker? So hardware in relation to sim racing, obviously. Yep. I mean, that we need it to sim race, but so what do you think is the biggest difference maker when it comes to gear? So do you think it's having a direct drive wheel or having a good pedal set or a motion system? What do you think is at the top of that list? And here's the reason I ask this question too, because I get this, you know, having sim motion, I get this question like, what should I upgrade first? Yeah. So what do you think is the most important upgrade path or the most important thing as far as gear goes for sim racing?
Yeah, well, I think it does ultimately come down to what you're looking to get out of the experience. I think you've got people that are just wanting to go as fast as possible and people that are wanting to be as immersed as possible. So those are two very different goals. And I think one of the awesome things about sim racing is that even though at the end of the day it's a metal frame with a steering wheel and pedals, you never find two rigs that are the same as each other. Everybody's got their own idea about how to customize it, and I love that creativity side of it as well. But yeah, look, I mean, I would generally recommend if somebody was asking me, you know, if somebody came to me and they said, I've got $2,000 to spend, what should I spend it on? I would say a solid cockpit and a decent set of pedals would be the first thing. You know, pedals are a funny one because I think people generally will say, you know, the force feedback's the most important thing because that's the most tangible thing that you're feeling. You know, it's actually giving you, you know, feedback back through your hands. But yeah, a decent set of pedals that actually allow you to brake consistently and, you know, with feel are definitely the most important thing. But you can't achieve that with you know, with a you know, set of pedals that are just sitting on the ground either. So I mean, I had somebody send me a message the other day saying you know, they didn't like I'm not going to name names, but, you know, it was a particular brand of pedals that they bought that were pretty high end, you know, sort of mid to high level stuff. And he was just trying to use them on the ground and he was complaining that they were garbage because they were tipping up every time he hit the brake. And I was like, well, you know, you're running a 100 kilogram load cell brake. What do you expect?
What are you expecting?
Yeah, but people, you know, like it sounds silly to people that are experienced, but, you know, if somebody just goes out and they go, oh, well, that looks like a good set of pedals and they buy them, they wouldn't know any different.
Yeah. Husingveld, as a matter of fact, has a disclaimer, like on all the. I think it's just on their description pages. Yeah. Must be hard mounted, or I don't know exactly how they word it, but you must mount these to something stable because, like you said, they're basically going to just flip up on you as soon as you hit that brake.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of we've had to completely change how we do pedal reviews because I remember back in the early days it was very much. Different sets of pedals would have different characteristics and it was very easy to sort of, you know, deep dive and analyze the characteristics of any given pedal set. Nowadays, I find that, you know, everything is pretty good at simulating the broad spectrum of driving from street cars with a slush pedal all the way through to Formula One cars where you're pushing on a brick wall. So yeah, it's a lot more difficult. But what I'm finding is that people will buy a high-end set of pedals and then, they jump in the car and they're not able to drive as quickly as they could with their old pedals because of the muscle memory. So then they go and they set up their $2,000 set of pedals to feel like Logitech G27 pedals because that's what they're used to.
Right.
And it's like, well, so
take your time and get used to them.
Exactly.
Get them dialed in for your preference. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell people that too, that come in and say, hey, listen, it's, there's not one piece of gear that's going to particularly make you faster. There's guys that are the fastest out there that are running G27s or, the cheapest pedals are, wheels that you can buy, and they're blowing us away on the track. It's just about getting used to that gear and getting comfortable with it, and then expect to take a little time to transition to that new gear. So that definitely...
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk like force feedback, especially in the current realm of bases. Like, what do you think is the biggest... You've tried everything. What do you think the biggest difference is from, like, say, a Simucube, which is it's been put at the top of the list as the best out there, to like Moza or a SimMagic or even Logitech or I call it Fanatic from back in the day, but what do you think is the biggest difference between like the high-end Simucube to a mid-range, let's say?
We're talking just the quality of the force feedback, not the wider ecosystem. Okay.
Yeah, forget the let's pretend you had the same wheel on two bases that are $1,500 apart in price tag.
Yep. Okay. In the current market, the way it sits is a very, very good high-end wheelbase is able to produce all of the effects that you would want to feel realistically without any compromise. So in the case of the Simucube 3 Pro and Sport that we just reviewed a couple of weeks ago, that stood out to me, and we actually ended up adjusting our comparison charts to create a bigger gap at the top between the Simucube 3 and everything else. So our previous 9.5s on the list ended up dropping down to 8.5 so we could make more room because it is that much better in terms of just the raw force feedback. What stood out about that base specifically, well, those two bases specifically, was there just wasn't any compromise in terms of adjustment. So we were able to bring out that raw detail without needing to compromise overall smoothness and things like that, refinedness. It almost has this almost analog feeling to it. It's like the difference between listening to an MP3 versus a vinyl record, something like that. What we find with the more entry level stuff is that you're having to make compromises in the setup. So if you want to have a really smooth and refined feeling, that's going to come at the cost of losing some detail. So you might not quite have the same level of road texture. You're having to run a lot of additional filtering to smooth out the robotic feeling. But in doing that, you're sacrificing some of the fidelity. Whereas on the really high end stuff, they're able to, bring out all of that detail while still also being smooth. That's probably the biggest detail difference I would say at the moment in terms of, the difference between something high end and, more entry level. But we are talking about small margins here.
So is it more, do you think it's more newton meters of torque based, or Simucube's got the secret sauce?
I think it's definitely not just the strength. Like if you take two 25 newton meter motors, they're not going to feel the same as each other. It's partly to do with the inherent design of the electronics and the motor itself. The inertia of the shaft is one thing, which is a combination of the weight and the design, as well as the overall diameter or circumference of the shaft as well. Obviously, the bigger it is physically, the more inertia it's going to have. So, a smaller, lightweight unit is always going to be more responsive overall, but that still needs to be controlled by the motor algorithm. So, we recently saw the SimMagic Ultra that came out, the Evo Ultra, and that was incredibly responsive, almost to the point of feeling hyperactive to a lot of people. So we actually had to tone it down quite a bit, and we were able to get a really good feel out of it. It was, it's an exceptionally good bass, particularly for the price, but it just doesn't quite have that same level of refinedness that we're getting out of the Simucube 3. But I mean, obviously you're paying a lot more for the privilege of that. So, but yeah, look, it's partly just, I guess often what we see is, and it becomes easy to tell, like I was looking at our comparison chart yesterday, we've reviewed 39 direct drive wheelbases now.
Wow.
Yeah. And
crazy.
it's very easy to tell the difference between something that is, they've found an off-the-shelf motor and then they've gone and developed software and firmware that controls that motor, versus something that has been chosen or designed specifically for the purpose of sim racing, and then algorithms and everything developed to drive it for that purpose. So, yeah, it's a combination of the software, the firmware, all the control logic and everything, as well as just the actual design of the physical motor.
That's well put, and very technical. I love that. See, and this is why I think you're on top. It's because you go the extra lengths to figure this all out and get the most out of the gear that you're driving at the time.
Yeah.
So cool. That's great insight. I loved hearing you talk about it like that. What is your biggest surprise in sim racing, let's say in the last year, hardware-wise?
Hardware-wise? Ooh. Biggest surprise? That's a good question.
Oh, wow, I can't believe this brand came out with this product. And they did it so well.
Probably the active shifter from BDH, I would say.
Okay.
I haven't had hands-on with one yet, but that really surprised me, because it's such an expensive niche product that requires so much development. They must be very, very confident that there's a market for it. And those are the kinds of products that I'm always really interested in reviewing, because you have to take such a different approach, because the person that's likely to buy something like that, who is going to be asking very different questions from somebody that's buying a $200 shifter. They're going to be wanting a lot more detail. So yeah, that was probably the thing that surprised me the most, in terms of, wow, I'm surprised that they did that. The product that surprised me the most in terms of how good it was compared to what I was expecting would probably be the belt tensioner from Gimmick system. I've got it on the rig right now. And yeah, we reviewed that, I want to say maybe a little bit over a year ago now, but that was, I've run seat mover motion systems on the rig previously, and, we're running a full D-box setup now on this one, and, I've tested all kinds of different motion. But yeah, that belt tensioner system really surprised me, because it really did add a lot more to the overall experience and communication of what the car's doing underneath you than I was expecting. So, yeah, that was more surprised from a technical standpoint of, wow, they actually really made this thing amazing, as opposed to just being a gimmick. I kind of half expected it to be a bit of a gimmick, and it just didn't really turn out to be that way.
Yeah, I formerly worked for Sim Experience, and they developed their belt tensioner.
Yeah.
And so I was in on that early development and had a prototype and all that stuff. And for me, I really need to try this Cubic one now that you're saying that, because I wouldn't say it was gimmicky, but it got to the point where it's like, do I really want to have these belts on when I'm sim racing? And I think part of it for me too is I had a G seat at the time, traction loss, and a seat mover, and I was like, those are all doing enough for me. I don't need these extra belts.
Yeah.
But I could see, like, by itself, I thought, oh, this is pretty cool, because it would pull on you for G forces each direction and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have to check the Cubics out.
It's the only belt tensioner system I've ever used, so I don't have that perspective on it. The only other comparative thing I had was I did with the seat mover that I had a bungee system set up. So I had bungee cords attached in a cross pattern to the bottom of the rig, So when the seat moved forward, it naturally pulled the seatbelt tighter.
Right.
But that was the only point of comparison I had going into that review. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what your thoughts are, having experienced other systems that are similar.
Yeah, well, and that's the only one that I had ever tried was the Sim Experience one.
Yeah.
Motion. Let's talk motion. So, what's your take on motion? Do you think that it's gimmicky, or you know what? I love that you use the word immersion. I like to use the term layers of immersion.
Yep.
And so, what's your take on motion, and how immersive is it or isn't it?
So, in 3 words, less is more would be how I would summarize motion.
Totally agree.
There's been times where, I've been in the heat of the moment and battling away on track and suddenly realize, oh, I forgot to turn my motion system on, and I'm already halfway through the race and I didn't even realize. So, and that'll probably surprise a lot of people. That's the level of motion that I'm running on my rig. Now, I do have to have it turned down more because of the point of view videos that I shoot. Point of view videos, rather. If I've got too much relative motion between the screen, the dashes on the screen and the steering wheel, because my screens are massive and they can't move with the rig, that is immersion breaking for people viewing the videos. So I do actually have the motion turned down a little more than I would if it was just for me and my own, personal use. But I think the big mistake that people make is trying to simulate the movement of the body of the car rather than trying to simulate the forces that you would experience sitting in the seat of the car, right? So the motion system isn't supposed to be, simulating the body going around corners and stuff. It's meant to be simulating the movement of the seat and your feet and all that stuff. So a subtle little nudge in the right direction is all that you need. And the big problem is that when you've got these motion systems, and this is just my opinion, but when you've got these big motion systems that are moving around, and particularly with sway and yaw, I find, the issue is that if you're going around a corner, it can give you that initial movement, but it can't give you sustained G-force, right? So you go around a corner, the rig's going to tilt, and that's, pretty accurate. But then as you're sustaining that G-force around the corner, it doesn't have any more scope of movement, so it just sits there. So all of a sudden that sensation's gone. But then when you straighten the car back up again, it's got to return to center before it can do the next thing, because it can't just infinitely move in the same direction. So on a motion system that's got too much movement in it, you end up feeling that return to center movement, and it feels very unnatural. So you end up feeling like you're sort of floating in the car, and it's much more profound, like I was saying, with sway and yaw. So definitely less is more in that sense. You just want to have, and it comes to, it's a very similar principle to how I would explain any sort of haptic feedback system on a rig, whether it's belt tensioners or, steering wheels or even, vibration motors in pedals. It's not necessarily about trying to simulate what you would experience through the seat of the pants in a real car. It's more about giving your brain the cues that it needs to understand what the car's doing underneath you. Yeah, so that very much ties in with motion specifically, I would say. It's and I guess another good example is, those haptic feedback pads that you find from Lex Level Racing just did one recently. And they've got vibration motors in various different areas around the car. And that's not realistic at all if you're comparing it to a real car. It's not like you're going to feel ABS through this leg and traction. That's not how it works. But what happens when you use it for a month or so, you start to learn, okay, when I feel that sensation, it means this. When I feel that sensation, it means this. So you're able to sort of learn, and I mean, neuroplasticity plays a massive part in this as well, in establishing all that muscle memory. I mean, you hear about people, we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but you hear about people that have lost their sight, for example, and they can actually attach a sensor to your tongue and trigger little sensory inputs through your tongue that your brain can then rewire itself and interpret as, very, very low resolution sight. So people can actually understand if there's an object in front of them from a sensor on their tongue, which is absolutely crazy. So, that's the level that the brain is able to adapt to these things. So, it's very much about giving your brain cues that it can use to understand what things mean inside the car in the absence of that real world seat of pants feel. So if you're trying to simulate, massive amounts of movement with motion, it's just not going to work. And I mean, I think it's very similar to when I used to work at Sony. You'd walk into an electronics store, and you walk into the TV section, and everybody's got their TVs set up in like maximum brightness mode and maximum contrast, and everything looks like a cartoon. And the reason they do that is because they want it to stand out in the shop. Wow, that one looks impressive. And then you'd get it home and it looks ridiculous. So the best looking TV in a shop environment isn't necessarily the best TV in your living room. And I think it's very similar when you go to trade shows and everything. People are running maximum motion so it looks super impressive, but that's not really what you want when you get it into your sim racing rig. So yeah, that's my take on motion.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree. I agree with you 100% on everything you said. To me, I get in and I feel like I'm on a roller coaster. Bernie Villers, who the owner of Sim Experience, used to call it breaking immersion.
Yep.
And I think that was such a great term to describe that exactly, because the last thing you want to do when you get into a racing sim is to not feel like you're in a car. To break that, you want to be immersed. You want to feel like you're in a car. And like you were talking about the roll, I don't like a bunch of roll when it comes to motion. Like if anything, like if I'm running a NASCAR style, I might like it just to kind of tilt a little bit as I hit the banking. Yeah. Stuff like that. But the whole G-force roll, I personally can't. I usually have that turned off for the most part. I like to feel the bumps. I like to feel the surge under braking and stuff like that, but minimally, just to get the cues. Like you said, it's to the point where, oh crap, I didn't have my motion turned on.
Yeah.
I like that just that extra layer of immersion, just to kind of tell me what the car's doing without telling me too much.
Yeah, exactly. The way I often describe it is, you never want to be in a situation where the car's driving you rather than you driving the car.
Well put. Yep. All right, so let's move on to a couple other things here, and then we can wrap this up. And again, thank you so much for your time.
No worries at all.
So is it just you and your brother running the operation now?
So
is your wife involved too?
Yeah, so she does a bit of the admin stuff on the side. Just manages things like Facebook pages and scheduling of posts and things like that. But yeah, look, I mean, it's mostly my brother and I. We've also got Sean, who's interstate. He's taking care of the flight sim stuff that we've been doing recently. So he's been with us for just a bit over a year now. Started out just doing written articles on the website. But yeah, he's a contractor, so he's got his own business, and we pay him to to produce content and stuff. So we've got a good arrangement with him that sort of allows him to have the freedom to do as much or as little as he wants. And yeah, that's going pretty well as well. So we've got him, and that's good. And then other than that, it's really just sort of bringing on contractors as we need them. So we recently completely redid our entire website. That was a massive project last year.
Looks great, by the way. I love your website.
Thank you.
Great job on it.
We've put a lot of effort into that one. So it's been a bit of a soft launch. I haven't talked about it a whole lot yet, but we've still got a couple of things in our back pocket that we're going to be launching pretty soon. So that'll be exciting. But yeah, so we had a web developer that was helping us out with that pretty much full time for about 6 months. But yeah, that's sort of he's there if we need him now. But yeah, look, I mean, for day-to-day running, it's effectively my brother and I that are doing the sim racing stuff.
Very cool. And so, who does all the editing? Do you guys share it? Does Tom do all the editing? Do you do? Because trust me, I know how much time, especially with the videos you do. Yeah. There's a lot of content and B-roll and all that stuff that goes into it. So, who does? Do you guys share the load with that?
No, the race videos I do, and the sort of rough and ready stuff. So like if I'm doing a quick video where I'm just jumping in the rig and talking about something, or if I'm doing shorts or unboxing things like that, I do that all entirely myself. The big high production value review videos, Tom does all of the editing on those. So when I brought him on originally, he was my cameraman and editor. That was the reason why why I brought him on. And then over time, he sort of naturally fell into the things that he's most passionate about. And I've intentionally kept him protected from a lot of elements of the business as well, so that he doesn't get distracted and he's able to focus on what he's, most valuable to the business for. So, he's a much better editor than I am nowadays. And he's got the freedom to sort of be as creative as he needs to be as well. And, I never micromanage him. I know that, I have no idea what he's doing day to day. He works here. Usually if we're filming, he works here 2 days a week. And the rest of the time he's working from home. And, as long as the video is ready when we need it to be ready, I have no idea. But yeah, that works really well for him because he's got a fantastic work ethic and, I know that he's going to do an absolutely stellar job every single time. And he's always challenging himself as well. But, more recently he's become a bit of a coding whiz, and he's done most of the new website outside of the visual design elements of it. All the coding and, all the product databases that we've built and everything are all done by him. So that's probably about 70% of his time now, I would say, is website stuff. Almost to the point where I'm starting to think about hiring an editor, to free him up because his time is so much more valuable doing that kind of stuff. But then, you get into the efficiency stuff where, because he's the cameraman, he knows what we've been shooting. He's got a very good awareness of the products and he knows what to focus on. Whereas trying to sort of communicate that to an editor would be very difficult. Plus, I think it's healthy for him to have a bit of a mix as well. It gets him out of their house for 2 days a week to come up here. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way things are running at the moment. And a whole other topic of conversation could be, the demand versus capacity. And, I could easily hire 10 people tomorrow and keep them busy. Like, we've got that much demand for reviews. But I want to keep it small and personal. And I think that, that's really what people expect from us. They don't want, 10 videos a week. They want, a high quality video that they know somebody sat down and actually tested something for, a decent amount of time before producing that video. So, there's all sorts of business aspect stuff that we could get into if you wanted to on, revenue versus spend and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, we are sort of trying to keep it something that we enjoy and fun. And yeah, so he looks after the website stuff, video editing and shooting, and I look after all of the relationship management, all the product research, all the social media side of things as well, with interacting with the audience. And I sort of try to keep him protected from that stuff so that he doesn't get distracted and he's able to focus on what he's doing.
That can be very distracting.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love engaging with the community and everything, but it is, if there were 48 hours in a day, I still wouldn't be able to answer everybody. So right, trying to, particularly when you're doing things like coding, you've just got to focus. You can't have your phone going off every 12 seconds. It's just not. Yeah, you'd never get anything done.
Well, props to Tom because he does an amazing job as your cameraman, and your editing is just amazing as well. And I can see, you can tell that you guys have worked together for a long time. Just the way he focuses on certain things, and it looks like you guys are, a lot of times you're running at least two cameras, and so great job to both you guys for working and making it just look so seamless.
Thank you. It's kind of it ties into what we were saying before with, my background and, sort of all leaning towards where we've gone and what we're doing now. His background was actually professional audio engineer. So he was a producer for a radio station. So that naturally comes across very well into, video editing and stuff. So he just took to it like a duck to water.
Awesome.
Yeah. So he's,
well, it shows.
Again, he does a really good job.
He does. Well, you know what? Again, congrats to you guys for building such a great channel and following. And I always look forward to seeing your next video, what's coming out, and what you guys are reviewing. And I love when you get a little controversial with things. And but yeah, man, like I said, you guys are doing a great job. So one last question.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for 12 years now. You haven't been doing the sim racing side for 12 years, but you've been doing the channel for 12.
Yeah.
I think that was the right. Yeah,
Yep. That sounds
2014.
right.
So,
Yep.
what do you think? Like, and I know this is hard to predict or look at, but what do you think like the next 5 or 10 years looks like for you, like doing this? You see yourself doing it for a long time?
This is a very big question. I have had to make some changes. So, I mean, my health took a big dive over the last couple of years. And I put on a lot of weight because I wasn't focusing on eating right and exercising and all that kind of thing. So, my health definitely took a dive, and I've had to really sort of try to get back on top of that. It's not as easy to lose weight now as it used to be. So, yeah, that's definitely had to become more of a focus. We were talking just before off camera about sleep as well, and the fact that because most of the sim racing companies are in America or Europe, and I'm in Australia, my 6 p.m. when the kids need my attention is everybody else's 9 a.m. when the day's just starting. So yeah, I'm pretty much nocturnal these days, which isn't exactly healthy either. Yeah, so look, we've been doing a lot of thinking about the future and where we're going with everything, and the new website is a big part of that. I've never been super comfortable with being 100% reliant on a third-party service like YouTube for our bread and butter, because they can change the game at any moment and you're completely screwed. I mean, I've had emails from YouTube before saying we're going to delete your channel tomorrow and there's nothing you can do about it. It's that volatile, and I think a lot of people don't realize just how volatile it can be. So yeah, we've very much got ourselves to the point now where I would say probably from a business perspective, 70% of our revenue is now derived through the website rather than the videos.
Wow, nice.
And that's very intentional, and that's not to say that the videos are going to go away by any means, but we've very much, if you go back and watch my early sim racing reviews, it was very much sort of like a journey of discovery. So I'd get something out of the box, I'd test it out, I'd take the viewers on the journey with me as I learned about the product. And because things have gotten so complex these days, that doesn't really work anymore. The video ends up being 3 or 4 hours long, and nobody's going to watch that. So these days it's much more, spending a week testing the product off camera and then spending a couple of days filming my overall impressions, and it's more of a summary of the experience overall that we've had with the product from an objective and subjective standpoint. So these are the things that we noticed about the product. This is how I feel about it overall. And then relying on the website a lot more as a tool to sort of justify those observations. So we do written reviews alongside our video reviews of every single product now. And then we also have these comparison charts that we've been working on as well, so people can easily go back to those. So rather than, for example, spending 20 minutes in a video going through every single price comparison and, or you might want to consider this or that or this, I can just spend a couple of minutes giving a quick summary of what people might be interested in, and then say, if you're interested in a full breakdown that shows everything and all the comparisons at different price points or whatever, go over onto our website and you'll find the full breakdown there. So it means that I'm able to get the information across to people in video a lot more efficiently and use the website as a tool to do that. Plus, a video is only ever a snapshot in time as well. So, you review something and then, one of the big problems that we have now is that every firmware update completely changes how a product drives. And then, you can't, as I said before, we've got 39 wheelbases that we've reviewed now. That's just direct drive ones. You can't stay on top of that all the time in video format. So I spend usually a week every 1 or 2 months just going through all of the bases again with the latest software and firmware, and then updating those comparison charts on the website, so that's always current. And then I can sort of feed that knowledge back into the next review video that I'm doing when I'm comparing a product, but I'm not having to go and make a new video for every single wheelbase every single time there's a software update, because that's just not possible.
Right. That'd be way too time consuming.
Exactly. And nobody, for viewers as well, nobody's going to have time to watch a video on every single wheelbase every single time there's an update. So that's become a much more valuable tool for us now. So we'll be sort of continuing more in that direction of, the videos being a supplement to the information that's provided on the website. But also we're, hopefully in the next week or two, I'm going to be launching a completely new project as well, which is going to be going back into the car stuff. So
Really?
yeah, so by the time, I don't know when you're planning on putting this video out, it may have already launched, it may not have. Yeah, over the last 12 months now, actually 18 months, we've built a big workshop up at the back end of the property. So I've got a car hoist in there and everything. And yeah, we're going to be getting back into building cars. And that's going to be so it's going to be a completely separate channel, and it's going to be a family-friendly channel as well. So now my kids are old enough to enjoy doing that stuff. Yeah, getting involved with them, and that's going to be a way that I can spend more time with them, sharing something that I'm passionate about, and hopefully, getting some community interest behind that as well. Because I think that there's a lot of automotive YouTube stuff out there, but there's not a lot of family-friendly stuff. And I really want this to be something that, dads and mums can watch with their kids and learn from. And yeah, so really excited to get into that. That's going to be kind of along the lines of what we were talking about before with, having that separation between work and hobby.
Right.
When your hobby becomes your job, it's not your hobby anymore. And that's not to say that I don't love the sim racing stuff. And I'm not going to be, reducing the number of review videos that we do or anything like that. This is very much something that we're going to be doing, on the weekends completely separately, and it's not going to have an impact on, the review side of things. But yeah, it'll just be fun to sort of, have something else that's a hobby again, rather than sim racing consuming absolutely 100% of my brain all the time. So yeah, really excited about that as well. So yeah, the future for Boosted Media is a lot more focused, I think, is probably the way to say it. A lot more efficient. But yeah, still sort of sticking to our roots. And I think, the reason why people watch us in the first place. I mean, a lot of people have commented on the fact that, we don't tend to cover expos and things like that. And, the reason for that is because it's not really why people watch our channel. People are watching us because they want our review in our controlled environment under our conditions, and so that's we're really going to sort of stay focused on all of that side of things. But yeah,
and they want to hear your opinion.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the plan at the moment. I mean, things are always changing, but I certainly can't keep up the pace that I have done over the last 5 years in the building phase forever. Definitely have been dealing with a lot of burnout, particularly over the last 12 months. Yeah, and that's completely self-inflicted. I think I'm probably my own worst enemy a lot of the time. The expectation that I put on myself is a lot higher than I think people actually realistically expect of me. So I've really sort of had to go, all right, I need to draw some boundaries for myself here. And yeah, understand that my best is good enough, and yeah, be okay with that.
Yeah, good. That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Well, Will, thank you so much again for taking the time to join me this evening. For me, morning is still, what was it, noon?
It's
noon for you
just
now?
about to go midday. Yeah, 1 minute to midday.
Okay. But yeah, again, thank you so much again. And again, congratulations on the success. I'm really looking forward to seeing that new channel and how that all pans out. That'll be
me too.
That'll be some cool content. Well, you know what, too? It'll be cool. I have a 6-year-old grandson now, and he's into cars and racing and stuff. And it'll be cool to maybe share that with him.
For sure.
That's a little more family friendly. Anything else you wanted to say to the viewers while I had you? Obviously different subject than what you cover on your channel, but anything you wanted to, any other topics you wanted, before we do wrap it up, any other topics you wanted to touch on?
Not really any other topics. I think we've covered pretty much everything. I mean, there's a lot of nuances on all the things that we've talked about that we could dive deeper into if you wanted to. But yeah, look, I mean, I guess the biggest thing for me is just just want to express my appreciation to the entire community. I mean, as we've touched on, this has always been a thing that has been passion driven for me. Obviously a business needs to run as a business. It needs to be financially sustainable. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And I think out of all the things that we've been lucky enough to achieve, the thing that I'm the proudest of is the fact that, we are pretty much entirely funded by people choosing to support our work if they found what we're doing valuable. And that's always been at the heart of everything that I've tried to do. Every time I switch on a camera, it's always, how is this actually going to bring value to the community? And I think that that's something that's really lacking on YouTube, and I'm quite concerned about the direction that YouTube's going in general. When YouTube, and again, we touched on this right at the start of our conversation about, the early days of YouTube when it was just about documenting whatever. And now it's become much more. And I guess to summarize that, YouTube to me is starting to feel like it's gone from something that was designed for creators to give value to their audience to a way for creators to extract value from their audience. So it's always, click like, subscribe, go follow this, go follow that. How can I put as many ads as possible in here? How can I trade your attention for money? Right? That's very much the YouTube landscape these days, and I really detest that. I really don't like the direction that things are going. So, I've always sort of tried to stick to my guns with this and, provide as much value as I can, but it wouldn't be possible without the community support. So I wanted to, express how thankful I am that people continue to support us and, find value in what we're doing. And, I struggle a lot with imposter syndrome in general. I don't feel like I deserve the success that we've had. I know that I've worked really hard for it. I don't question that, but, through all of the challenges of COVID and everything, we were really, really lucky as well. And I know there are a lot of people out there that weren't as lucky as we were in that situation, that worked just as hard. So I don't take it for granted. I do very, very much appreciate all the support of the community. And I hope that we can continue to provide the value to you guys that you expect from us. And just wanted to say a big, big thank you to everybody for making our dream come true, I guess is the best way to put it.
Very well put. That was
Thank you.
That was great. And you definitely should not have imposter syndrome. You deserve to have this success because, man, you guys do great work. You and Tom just do a phenomenal job, and just keep it up. I'll continue to look forward to seeing what you guys bring to the community. And again, I'm looking forward to that new channel.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for having me. And we appreciate you guys as well. It's great to see you guys have rebooted too. And enjoying watching all the content as it comes out. So wish you all the success in the world as well. And I think that's probably something that we should touch on quickly before we close out is I want to sort of emphasize to people that are watching this that, the people on this side of the camera, we are all mates. We do all talk to each other. And, that doesn't mean that we're sharing notes necessarily and sort of, colluding to come up with a narrative or anything like that, which I know is often an accusation that happens with reviews. But, we are all friends. We are all rooting for each other. We are all supporting each other. And I've never seen it as a competition between reviewers or anything like that. It's always, I think there's very few people in the world that really understand the nuances of what we do. And I think it's really important for us to all support each other and be there for each other. And I just think it's such a fantastic community. And, I wanted to make sure that, people that are watching are aware that, we are all mates. We are all sort of, doing our best for the community, and we appreciate the support, back in the other direction as well.
Yes, definitely. And because when I rebooted the channel, I had reached out to you about Logitech, and you connected me with somebody and helped us get some gear. And then just recently, I had some contacts at Microsoft, and I passed them on to you. So, I love that we can. I don't look at you as competition. I look at you as like you said, a mate, and somebody that can relate. And coming back into this too was kind of scary a little bit.
Oh, it would have been,
Yeah, being away from it since pretty much when you started was when I dropped out of it.
Exactly. And that's where a bit of my luck came from as well. That's actually one thing that we didn't really talk about much was how I actually got started into sort of transitioning between, being something that I was just doing for fun into, okay, this is actually starting to look like a full-time job. And a big part of that was when I started to notice that there was a bit of a gap in the, I guess, review market for sim racing gear. And it was literally at that time, the only big channels were you guys and probably Sim Racing Garage, Barry.
Right.
And literally the week that I started considering doing sim racing reviews was the week that John put out that video saying that he wasn't going to be able to do it anymore because he'd taken that new engineering job. So you guys pretty much opened the door for me to fill that gap, which made a huge difference.
Yeah, your timing couldn't have been better.
Yeah, and it literally
was beginning of 2018 was when John did his last video.
And that was literally just pure luck on my part. It was literally just, I happened to be there right when you guys were sort of, wrapping those things up. And yeah, it just worked out that way. So
right place at the right time.
Exactly.
Well, it couldn't have happened to a better guy. You know what?
Thank you.
We passed the torch to you, and you took it and ran with it. And again, congratulations. We didn't really pass it. You just happened to just be there to take it and run, and you've just done an awesome job. So,
and look, that's the thing as well. Like it's like we were touching on. It's not a competition, but one of the big things that I believe, and maybe naively so, is that there is room for everybody. It's great to get different people's perspective on things, and you're not always going to agree with what everybody says on every single product, and that's the most important thing. I've always said it's not a reviewer's job to convince you that they're not biased. It's a reviewer's job to disclose any potential bias so that you guys can decide for yourselves whether you trust that person or not. And ultimately, the more opinions that are out there, the better. And, another thing I've always said is, the comments section of a review video is probably the most valuable part of the video, because that's where people are sharing their real world, accounts of what it's like to actually own that product. So, there is room for everybody. And I mean, I know often in the comments section, you watch any reviewer and you got all these comments saying, oh, you're the best reviewer, you're the only reviewer that I pay attention to. Don't watch everybody's reviews. If you're genuinely, seriously looking at spending a lot of money on something, don't rely on one person. Go and watch a bunch of people's reviews, because everybody's going to have a different take. And, it's great to see, one of the things that I'm really proud of is the fact that, we have been sort of able to demonstrate to a large extent that what we're doing here is able to be financially sustainable and even successful. And there have been a lot of people that have reached out to me, wanting help getting started. And we've been able to sort of, act as mentors to them. And, a lot of them have had success. So, it's really great that we've sort of been able to shine that light for people, show that it is possible with a lot of hard work and dedication and perseverance. And, I hope that continues, because the more opinions out there, the better.
And I do want to just touch on that or respond to that.
Yeah.
Owning SimMotion, and we hear so much. How do I know what to get? Because I can't. You go buy a car, you test drive it, and you may look at reviews. So I totally agree with your take on the more opinions, the better, because most people, people local here in Spokane, Washington. And everybody that comes to the door, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. And then we have rigs set up with most of the brands that we carry for people just to test drive stuff, so they can get hands-on experience. And that's where guys like you come into play, and OC Racing and all the other guys that are making great content really help people make an educated purchasing decision, because $300 to somebody could be a lot of money, especially a college student. And then there's guys where $3,000 or $30,000 is nothing, but they still want to make the educated buying decision. And again, that's where guys like you and OC Racing and all the other really good influencers or reviewers, I don't really like to call it influencers, because you do influence purchases, but I like how you mentioned that your opinion. And, but I agree. I think the more opinions, the better. I love your take on that, and that you don't look at everybody as competition, and that you're mentoring. I meant to ask that too. Like, what would you tell somebody just getting started in this? Because people have asked me that too, and I basically said, you got to keep plugging away. and don't expect to be successful, and don't try to do it just to make money. Are you doing it to try to make money and advertising dollars, or are you doing it because you're passionate about this?
Yeah,
and that'll
look,
come across.
One of the comments that always triggers me really hard is I should start making YouTube videos so that I can get free equipment too.
Right.
And it's like that is just so backwards on so many levels, because first of all, you know, there is an exchange there of, you know, it's not financial, like they're not paying you to do the review, but you know, there is a transaction there. They're sending you equipment, but it's not free, right? You are putting in the work, and for us at least, and I'm not going to speak for every reviewer because everybody has their own way of doing things, but for us, the value of that equipment is the content that we can produce from it, right? So I don't need another wheelbase. I've got 40 wheelbases in the room just there. You know, I don't need another pedal set. I've got over 100 pedal sets. I've got 15 cockpits. You know, I don't need sim gear. I'm not motivated. In fact, it's a liability for me because, you know, I'm paying thousands of dollars a month for insurance. I've had to, you know, spend $250,000 on a warehouse to store everything. You know, it's a liability at this point. And I think that's one thing that people don't realize. But yeah, it's being motivated by the accumulation of equipment, or, you know, by getting money in exchange for your opinions and stuff. It's such a backwards way of looking at it, because at the end of the day, the loyalty is to the audience. If you're like, yeah, okay, a new Fanatec wheelbase comes out, I know that there's going to be thousands of people that are going to buy that wheelbase, and I know that if I sing its praises, yeah, I'm going to earn a lot more money from those Fanatec affiliate links in the short term than I would if I said that the product was garbage, right? So yes, I would make a lot more money if I said that something was good versus if I said something was bad. But extrapolate that out, look at the big picture. If what I'm saying in my videos isn't consistently in line with what customers' reality and, you know, actual usage is like, my credibility is gone, right?
Yep.
The only reason we make money is because people trust our opinions, right? And they make purchasing decisions based on those opinions. And that's the reason why we have affiliate links for, you know, as many brands as we possibly can, so that it makes as little difference as possible what somebody ultimately ends up buying. And that's just the way that I've chosen to do it. And, you know, some people will disagree with that. Some people will agree with it. Again, it comes down to, my job isn't to convince you that I'm not biased. My job is to tell you my potential biases so that you can judge for yourselves. So, yeah, but I mean, like if I was saying something was great when it was garbage just to earn money, yeah, I might earn a couple of $1,000s that week, but nobody's ever going to watch a video of mine ever again. And that well's going to dry up real quick. So the loyalty is absolutely always 100% to the audience. Yeah, but I mean, look, to answer your question directly in terms of advice for somebody starting out, there's a couple of things that come to mind immediately. First of all, don't expect to make money immediately. For me, I mean, it was a weird journey for me, as I described earlier. It was very much, I was very lucky that I had the income already and the time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do it. That's, you know, just a reality. But yeah, don't expect to make any money for 5 years. If you do make money before then, great. And there's plenty of people that do, but don't expect to. Lean into your strengths as well. Don't try to emulate anybody else. Your vibe attracts your tribe is the best way I can describe it. Just be yourself. And yeah, there's a lot of people in the world. I think people don't realize just how big the planet is. You know, however many billion people there is. 8 billion people we're up to now, 9 billion. That's a lot of people. There's going to be somebody out there that agrees with you, you know, and, you know, gels with you. So don't try to be somebody that you're not. Just be yourself. Lean into your strengths. And yeah, as long as you've got something of value to do. But don't just film content for the sake of it either. Anytime you switch on the camera, there should be a reason for doing so. Don't waste people's time.
Be intentional.
Be intentional, and, you know, don't get into the business of trying to extract value from your audience. You should always be giving more than you take.
Well put. Well put.
Yep.
Well, that's going to wrap things up. Again, I'll thank you again, Will. Thank you so much.
Not
This
a problem
was fun.
at all.
It was fun to do this. You know what? We'll have to do another one in a year or so after a little while, and
Yeah,
maybe
well, look,
touch on
I think
some
it'd be.
subjects.
There's like I said before, there's so many nuances in all the things that we've discussed. We've only sort of, just dipped into a lot of different topics here. So
Right.
it'd be really interesting to have a look at the comments, what people are most interested in, and maybe we could do another one in a couple of months' time, deep diving into one particular subject or something. If
I
people are
love that.
interested.
I love that. So tell us in the comments if you would like
Yeah.
to see us together again, do something like this, and tell us specifically what you'd love for what you'd love to hear from Will. What specific topics you'd like us to discuss, and Will and I will see if we can put it together. Because I had a lot of fun doing this, and it was cool
absolutely.
hearing your story too, how you got started and how you transitioned and all that. So hopefully all of you out there have enjoyed it as well. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Darren Ganji, and for Will Ford, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
See you guys.